Okay, class, today we're going to learn about American history.
No hablo español.
Maria, do you have something you'd like to add to the conversation?
No, I was just talking to myself.
Well, you know our classroom rule about speaking Mexican, don't you?
I don't speak Mexican this way. I speak Spanish. I'm from Mexico.
Well, it's not that important because it shouldn't be spoken in this classroom. We speak English here. We're American. Yeah?
How come we don't ever learn about the history of Mexico?
Because we don't live there.
But Miss White, the majority of this class is Mexican. Most of us speak Spanish at home. We live in Texas, which is right on the border of Mexico. I think it could be beneficial to learn about the Mexican culture and history as well.
Honestly, Maria, we've had this conversation. It's just not as important. Let's get started on our math lesson. Everyone, please take out your math textbooks. Maria, don't worry if you can't keep up. You don't need to know about algorithms anyway. If only I could teach the class something that would be useful to you. Like a lesson on how to be the best hotel maid you can be.
Miss White, I want to be a math teacher when I grow up, so I'm really interested in algorithms. Hi, Mom. Hi, Gloria.
How was school, Maria?
Miss White was pretty awful today.
What happened, my love? Come sit down next to me and your mother.
Well, first she got upset about me speaking Spanish. Then she told me it wasn't important to learn about Mexico's history. And then she told me I don't really need to know about math since I was basically going to be a hotel maid.
I still can't believe she's allowed to work at that school. Sounds like she needs to be made aware of my Borderland theory.
What's that, Gloria?
The Borderlands are physically present whenever two or more cultures edge each other, where people of different races occupy the same territory, where lower, middle, and upper classes touch, where the spaces between individuals shrinks with intimacy.
This sounds like us, Madre.
Yes, it does. But how can we change the school environment? Sometimes I just feel like nothing will change. The cultural deficit model is real. Teachers just have low expectations for students of color in low-income households. There's a lack of exposure to cultural models with success, so these teachers automatically believe our children enter schools with a lack of cultural capital.
Starts with affirming the cultural richness that is present in communities such as ours.
I don't think Miss White will ever realize the cultural richness of the Mexican community.
The U.S.-Mexican border, es una herida abierta, is an open wound, where the third world grates against the first and then bleeds. Before the wound heals, it hemorrhages again, the lifeblood of two worlds merging to form a third country, a border culture.
Wow, Gloria, that was so beautiful. If only Miss White could hear that. That's the kind of cultural richness she needs to be exposed to.
Borders are set up to define the places that are safe and unsafe, to distinguish us from them. A border is a dividing line, a narrow strip along a steep edge. A borderland is vague and undetermined place created by an emotional residue of an unnatural boundary. It is a constant state of transition. The prohibited and forbidden are its inhabitants.
That definitely sounds like us, in both the physical and mental state.
Gloria, do you think you can come into my class as a guest speaker? I think Miss White could definitely benefit from hearing about your theory.
Sure, Maria, I can do that.
Okay, class, today we're going to hear from our guest speaker, Gloria Anzuladua.
Hi, class. I'm a friend of Maria's, and I'm here to talk to you about understanding the hybridity of culture. Today, categories of race and gender are more permeable and flexible than they were for those of us growing up before the 1980s. Today, we need to move beyond separate and easy identifications, creating bridges that cross race and other classifications among different groups via intergenerational dialogue. Rather than legislating and restricting racial identities, we need to make them more pliant.
Pliant?
Yes, our goal is not to use differences to separate us from others, but neither is it to gloss over those differences. Many of us identify with groups and social positions not limited to our ethnic, racial, religious, class, gender, and national classifications. Though most people self-define by what they exclude, we define by what we include, what I call the new tribalism. I fear that many mesures de color will not want whites or men to join the dialogue. We risk the displeasure of those women. There are no safe spaces. Home can be unsafe and dangerous because it bears the likelihood of intimacy and thus thinner boundaries.
I mean, what you're saying sounds nice, but how can it be applied to a classroom environment?
Students should have binary schemes, and education shouldn't be limited to an individualistic mentality. We should all live simultaneously among different cultures, languages, traditions, and economic classes. For example, an American-born student and an immigrant student shouldn't have to compete for educational resources, nor should a student be forced to choose from a purely vocational or purely academic path.
Yeah, but how can we do this?
Ms. White, you can start with the encouragement of students to ask questions, pursue study, and post new critical questions about events that inform the larger society. Cultural inclusions are extremely important when thinking about the relevance of my theory. Of course, we still have gender, racial, and socioeconomic inequalities today, but the Borderlands theory offers an inclusive way to connect children from all cultures and backgrounds. Creating cultural hybridity in your classroom is the most important part. I think that allowing a child to be a fusion of all the cultures around them allows them to be a more understanding, sympathetic, and knowledgeable human. If every student was a hybridity of many cultures, I think that there could be less inequality and fewer instances of racial and cultural discrimination both in the classroom and in the world. Rather than being separated by race, class, gender, and culture, a classroom environment should focus on human fluidity and connection across multiple cultural contexts by introducing literatures from different cultural environments and perspectives that cause students to create inclusive and understanding views of the world and people around them.
What if we had a cultural day where parents were able to come into the classroom and talk about blending of their culture?
Oh, my mom would definitely like to come in and talk.
That sounds like a great start. It's also so important to take each child as an individual and understand that they are complex, rather than comparing them to a stereotype. Like with the video My Brother's Keeper on YouTube, where Latino men talk about the blatant inequality they experienced during their time in the educational system, this is still happening in our world today.
I just feel so badly about the way I've treated my students. I feel that I haven't tried to understand my students within their culture, home lives, and histories. I just feel like it might be difficult with Common Core, trying to find the time in the schedule to talk about culture.
That's the nice thing about Borderland theory. It can be incorporated into your pre-existing curriculum. It shouldn't and can't be a separate discussion. It should be woven in.
Right, and it's never too late to start, Miss White, and we can all help come up with ideas.
It might also be a good idea to read my book, Borderlands, La Frontera, The New Mestiza, which is an autobiography mixed with the cultural studies, reconstructivist history, poetry, and Latina Chicana feminist history to introduce a new borderland that describes the experience of living among different cultures, like many of your students are, Miss White. And it's not just Mexican Americans either. It's important to be aware of all cultures that are present in your classroom.
Thank you so much, Gloria. You've definitely changed the atmosphere of this classroom.